Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions. With your host, Berserker, this is Unshackled Fury.
Forbidden lands beckon. Trouble is a brewin'. And once again, we're taking a trip to the most dangerous place of all, my brain. So welcome back to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions, Unshackled Fury. I'm your host, Berserker. This is episode 122. And on today's show, we're talking about some recent controversies for Big Blue. What's officially coming soon in patch 10.0.7, and grading this month's trading post offerings. But first, there's something important that I want to talk about this week up front. And
Berserker, this is management.
oh god damn it. I've got something important I want to talk about here, guys. What's going on?
Well, we've been looking at your recent output, and you are not meeting the official quotas that are in place for your fine program. And we just want to check in and make sure that if there's any disruption here, that we get that sorted out straight away.
Yeah. I was gonna talk a little bit about some of that because I know it's here March now, and there's only the third episode that I put out of the year. We're like way behind. So yeah.
So I don't know if you've heard, but For Azeroth is currently on hiatus. Did you know that?
Yeah. Yes. I knew that, and I want to wish Liv all the best in her future adventures and endeavors. I hope wherever she lands next or whatever she does, I'm sure it'll be great. I hope that is happy and fulfilling for her. And I know that Manny's going to come busting out with something great for Azeroth. I mean, that's a given. So not too worried about that right there.
Well, neither are we. But in the meantime, we need you to step up. You're not the flagship, but at the same time, we still need some better product, some better production from you. Girls Gone WoW can't shoulder this load alone. You do realize that, don't you?
I do, but it's not just me, right? There are other great shows in the bonus roll lineup, the NA Warcraft Radio lineup, such as Realm Maintenance and technically PvP, among other great shows about other games.
But we need you. We need you. We need your brand. We need your tenacity. We need your brand of rage. It's something that really rounds out our portfolio amongst the other programs. Have you even seen the latest podcast rankings?
Honestly, I haven't.
Do you know Warcraft Less Traveled?
Warcraft Less Traveled? No, I don't think I've never heard of that one.
It's because they haven't had an episode since January of 2015, and they are beating you. This is true. They are actually ranking higher than you right now, and they haven't had an episode in the entire duration of your whole run.
That is eye-opening. I don't even know what to say about that other than yes, we will be back on schedule. I'm planning on getting some really good stuff out. I hope to have a really good guest for the next episode. I think that'll help. So yeah, we're back on track. Don't worry, management. Everything's gonna be okay.
Well, good, because we're counting on you, Berserker, and we need you to get back to business as soon as possible.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Excellent. Bye for now.
Well, don't I feel set straight? Being beat by a podcast that hasn't had an episode in 8 years. Humbling. Humbling, to say the least. But yes, here we are, back at it again. It is currently Sunday morning, March the 5th. And to kick things off today, I did have kind of a, it's not kind of a, it's a real thing that I wanted to talk about. And it's an issue that I am likely to talk about this week or around this week every year for as long as I do this show. And it's something that tangentially relates to items of conversation that pop up with other content creators that I have. And it's about mental health. I want to talk about mental health for a minute. Quick disclaimer. I am not a mental health professional. I have no training. I am not licensed. Whatever I say here is just my experience as a human being. That is it. As somebody who's had a lot of therapy, I've been through a lot, but I'm certainly not a professional. So I do not speak from that vantage point. But I did want to have a little real talk here today, this morning. Used to do these under the helm episodes or segments way back in the first incarnation of the show. I know Nav always really liked it when I did those. And, you know, I have always said that this show is part Warcraft news, part bullshit drama, and just part self-therapy. So if, you know, that's not your jam, then I'm sorry. This is not going to be the episode for you. And feel free to switch over to fucking some other show that hasn't been on in 8 years, and get your stuff there. But the reason why it's this week, the reason why this is the week that I've chosen, is it has been 1 year since we lost my neighbor, who I spoke about on this show, to suicide. It's been a little over a year. I think I called him Rick. Those are my ode to Rick. And it's been a little over a year since we lost him. And at the time, I gave it a little bit of time to kind of breathe and move before I felt the need to talk about it here. But I'm going to make this the week that we're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about resources. And it's something that has traditionally been very taboo. It's really hard to talk about. And I think you have to shine a light in those dark places in order to effectuate change of any kind. Because as somebody, as I spoke about this openly at the time, and I say it here now, you know, as somebody who has stared at that decision very seriously, sometimes you don't know where to turn, what to do. Unfortunately, my neighbor, who I always thought was happy and living the good life and doing the whole thing, obviously had his own challenges and was not able to get the help that he needed when he needed it. And watching the fallout with his family, watching how his family has dealt with that, has struggled incredibly to pick up the pieces and to deal with a business and to keep themselves whole. And it's horrible. There's no other way to put it. It's horrible. And I think when you see a situation like that firsthand, at least for me anyway, it really shook me up. I think that I've gotten to a point now where that's no longer an option that I keep on my table, but you never know. As somebody who, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression late in my life, and I know there's a whole movement of people out there. Well, you just need to work out more, and you need to fix your diet, and you need to do all these things. And God, you know what? I wish it was that easy. I really wish it was. But this is a chemical issue. It's a brain chemical issue, and you put that together with maybe some other decision making that isn't the best, and that's a real recipe for disaster. And maybe it's the time of year with that had happened, but I myself have found myself struggling a lot more recently. Part of that is we're going deep, folks. We're going deep. So you're going to learn more about me than you probably ever wanted to know. I came into the world in a split family. My birth parents weren't even together when I was born. I've never known my biological parents to have been together. The thought of it is just plain strange to me. All of my parents have been divorced multiple times. I still deal with a lot of the fallout of that, certain guilt from how some of those things have played out. I don't know that I've been abused in any sort of classical sense, but there is a lot of psychological warfare that still goes on to this day. And anybody who's experienced that, especially with their parents, it's a mindfuck and a half. Because these are people that, you expect to lift you up and help you, and, probably vice versa at a point. But when it becomes antagonistic or it becomes difficult, that can really weigh on you. And I've had a stretch of that recently. Had family come to town, and although I think that for the most part, it was probably good. It was a clean visit, so to speak. It still is exhausting and heavy, and I'll be honest with you, doesn't feel good to want to do a podcast after that. So I fully admit and apologize. This is why this one's coming a week late. I was exhausted by that, mentally, physically. I couldn't do it. Along with some other things, you find that when all of these thoughts creep in and you have motivational issues with content creation, it can be really tough to get stuff out. Talking with other creators, and this seems to be kind of across the board, as you have almost a crisis of conscience where you feel that energy is sapped out of you, and doing podcasts or streaming or whatever it is becomes like the last thing that you want to do. And I hear this all across the board. And there was a time earlier when I was doing this podcast originally where I did not have the grace to give people space when they were feeling that sort of way. I just thought they were quitters or they were full of shit, whatever it was. And, time is a great teacher, I suppose. But I find myself, in recent times dealing with some heavier things, and it's in those times when I become most thankful for the friends and the space and the game that we have in World of Warcraft. Because going into my raid 9 on Wednesday, I was in a shit-ass mood. There was no way about it. But there's something about that team. There's something about us getting together. There's something about us having the game that we do. And even when it gets tense, right? It's a feeling of a chosen family, and the laughs that we have that just lift my mood in a way that it's hard to describe to people that have never been there, that don't have that kind of support structure. Even if and I didn't say anything about this to my raid team, and I'm sure if any of them are listening to this now, like, oh, okay, I didn't know. Well, now you know. Not that I need to broadcast this beforehand. Now I'll broadcast it now. But it's having that outlet that I increasingly go back to is what's part of what's so valuable about the time that we spend in Warcraft, and having this escape from the things that either weigh on us or bring us down or cause us disruption or challenges that we don't necessarily want to have. I'm so thankful for it. And I'm lucky that this is something that I found in my life to be with, honest to God, one of the best friends I'll ever have in my whole life. Rommel, for those that, listen to the show long enough to follow me on social media. He's, I know you'll listen to this later, buddy. One of the greatest friends that I could hope for. And even just to digitally hang out with him a couple times a week just lifts my mood and helps me out. And so, here we are, kind of coming full circle back to this. I think that people feel there's some pressure not to speak openly about these issues, but I'll do it. I think it's partly because it's good for me to do it, but also because I don't want other people to be afraid and say, well, I can't say that kind of stuff. I can't talk about being depressed. I can't talk about not wanting to create content. I have to put on this image of something else. No, you don't. You don't. The choice is yours. And if people can't accept that, well, then fuck them. You don't need their approval. Right? But I do want to say, because there's no rage segment. This is just real talk today. No rage segment today. I did want to say that if at any point in your life you've stared down that dark road and thought to yourself, there's only one way out. I can't go on. I can't do this or that. There is always another day. There is always help. There's always a way out. Depending on the situation, it can be unimaginably shitty and nightmarish. But if you ever find yourself going down that road, please stop, pause, and give a call to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. That number is 800-273-8255. Once again, National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 800-273-8255. And they can get you to somebody to talk to about what's going on. This is a really important issue, especially as we're coming out of, the COVID era has been very dark for people. And I think our collective global mood is more in the toilet than it's ever been. And you read about rates of suicide and overdose deaths and all this kind of stuff. It's horrible. It's horrible. And so if you've ever been there, if you've ever felt that way, excuse me, please take a pause, take a second, and give them a call. I hope that didn't chase too many of you away. Just for the record, I'm feeling better. The mood's getting better. We are babysitting my brother-in-law's dog, and he's tearing up the house. That's a whole other rage segment, maybe for another day. But we do have a lot of news that I want to talk about, because there has been quite a bit of controversy over at Blizzard about a few things. So why don't we leave this item here, come back to it next year. Thank you for listening. If you need any resources, please seek them out. And those of us that are around, I will help you seek them out. But we'll leave that there. And why don't we go ahead and jump into our news? So, gotta figure out what my levels are. I'm still fucking with this machinery over here. Hopefully it sounds all right. So we got to talk about what's going on over at the Blizzard campus. Now, this story's a little bit old, but I did want to weigh in on it because there's a lot to pick apart here, and somebody who has some firsthand experience as a manager dealing with some of these issues. I want to give my perspective on Blizzard their return to office plans and this all hands Q&A debacle that happened here recently. So a lot of this telework, return to office concern, all the stuff that we saw out on Wowhead and everywhere else, Twitter especially. It looks like a lot of it started with a Twitter thread by user At Least My Hair Is Okay. That is a banger of a handle. And they tweeted out in a 14-part thread about how Activision Blizzard had announced a return to office plan, and that in this tweet that it begins in April and June, depending on the studio, and then they go into a whole thread about why this is a terrible thing, because COVID still is continuing on. ABK employees are still obviously enjoying being able to work from home. They feel safer. There's less pressure. It's more expensive because you might have to move, and now you're going to have commutes, and a lot of stuff that people talk about these days in terms of the advantages and disadvantages of telework. This thread got picked up by an outlet by the name of Game Developer, which I guess I need to start checking out this website more often because they got at least a couple of scoops that I'm going to cite within this part of the discussion. And they picked up on this, discussed, kind of laid out what the thread talked about, and they reached out to Blizzard and asked, what is going on? Is this true? Looking to either verify or, I don't know, not discredit, but try to see, at least from the company's vantage point, what exactly is going on. And the spokesperson confirmed to Game Developer that the office work would resume on April 10th for Activision publishing employees and July 10th for Blizzard employees. The sort of follow-up to that, which came later in a quote that was given also to Game Developer, but about the all-hands Q&A meeting that I'm going to talk about in a minute. They said that workers hired on an all-remote basis will retain that status under the return office plan. Quote, we will continue to evaluate long-term remote requests for existing and new employees. If employees want to relocate to be in the office, we will offer them relocation support. So, when I look at this, I think there's a bit of context that's important along with some of the other issues. And I think part of that context is informed by another thread that was posted more recently. This was just on March 1st by Josh Augustine, who I want to highlight. Both of these folks are Blizzard folks. He's a lead quest designer. And I'll pull this up here real quick. At Least My Hair Is Okay. Says they work for Blizzard. Don't know what they do. But they say they work for Blizzard. So, in the thread that Josh Augustine put together, he talks about how when he started almost 3 years ago doing work from home, right, that he was approved for permanent work from home. And when asked about whether or not that will continue, he says in a response to someone, yeah, thankfully I was approved for permanent work from home back in 2021, so I'll be able to continue working remotely in theory indefinitely. So herein lies, I think, a couple of the points. One, as soon as people heard return to the office, especially after the interview I know that I had with Ian, that Preach had with Ian and the rest of Blizzard, where they were talking up the work from home situation, right? That they've been able to adapt in all these ways, that things were going fairly smoothly. Ian did point out, you don't have some of the same, in office, like, ooh, that's a great idea sort of thing, and you hear this discussed in a lot of corners of the professional world is, those kinds of they call $1 million ideas that happen just randomly, right? That the likelihood of that, they believe, is reduced because people aren't in proximity with each other. Although I would argue that, there are remote ways, digital ways of getting people together. And Blizzard seems like they had, kind of found their way of doing that. But in light of them talking this up, the news that people are being ordered back to the office, that comes as a bit of a surprise to some. And the reactions were strong and swift, with people, blowing up Blizzard and how could you do this? And this is terrible for all these reasons. And my first thought was, right or wrong, is what were the expectations for the employees when they went work from home? Because in the case of someone like Josh Augustine, where they have been approved for permanent work from home, right? To me, that says, okay, you have no place to come in. There is no office for you. You are working from home forever. That is your job. That is the understanding of both the employee and the employer. That is permanent forever. The other is well, was the understanding that you had this kind of ironclad permanent language? Or was it, this is on a reviewable basis? Or is it that work from home is always meant to be temporary, regardless of how well anyone likes it? Is it open-ended or not? And to me, that is the biggest piece of this in terms of understanding that sort of flexes this conversation for me a little bit. Because if this is an open-ended, non-permanent situation, then you kind of assume the consequences, understanding that you could be recalled. So if you moved far away, you're taking your chances. And I have employees of my own who have done this, and they understand the risks that if we get recalled, their life is going to be, there's going to be some bigger challenges. Now, I'm trying everything I can to keep my people work from home because, like Blizzard and like the folks speaking out, it's worked very well for us. And I think I'm in a different situation where I'm not answering to the same kind of insane folks that you got over at the house of Bobby Kotick. But if it's not permanent, if it's open-ended, you kind of assume those risks, right or wrong. And that it's shitty, but I think you kind of have to always keep that in the back of your mind. If it's permanent, in the case of this individual, and I'm sure that there are others, and then they recall you, then I think you've got an even more legitimate beef, because you have then really upended things on the understanding that there is no opportunity to recall, right? So when you look at this overall, it seemed like it was working, right? And I think that's where a lot of our vantage point comes from, is Dragonflight alone should be proof enough that how they were doing this was working. And to now recall people, that does feel capricious, to say the least, where maybe it's because they need to fill the office space because they have, empty buildings and they need to justify these costs, or maybe they never intended to have permanent telework on a wide basis, and maybe people knew that, but because it's so popular, now you have a lot of pushback for obvious reasons, right? Any of us that have gone work from home, the work-life balance for a lot of us has improved in more ways than even can be quantified. Not having to commute, seeing, if you have children especially, which is something that Josh Augustine points out in his thread. Before the pandemic, I saw my son for about an hour in the morning and maybe a couple hours at night. That was it. 3-4 hours a day. That was it. And there was a time there after he was, in the early grades, where it did really start to weigh on me. Like, Jesus, he's growing up and I'm not seeing him nearly as often as I like. And as I mentioned earlier, I've got a lot of parental issues. So, abandonment and being there as a father, like, that's a big thing for me. And if it is a silver lining of all the hell that we've been through, is I think for a lot of us, parents have been able to spend more time with their kids. Now, when they were school and all that, I mean, it wasn't always great, but that is a work-life balance that was a pipe dream 3 years ago. Pipe dream. Commuting costs, commuting time. I mean, depending on where you live, traffic, 2-3 hours a day of your life, just gone. Just gone. No one's compensating you for that. It's just gone. The wear and tear on a vehicle, the cost to commute, gas if you got to pay for it, waiting for a bus, whatever. All that time just was gone. You got it back. So obviously a lot of benefits to the work from home model. And for Blizzard now, after there's been a successful sort of move to that, to pull that back, it does feel pretty shitty. I'm sure that they have some business-driven reasons. I don't know if they're the best. I've seen a lot of it. Their comments so far have been, trying to find a balance between what's best for the employees and best for the business. I think we know which way that's going to go. But I think that you have to keep at least some sense of perspective in terms of what the expectations were before you go apeshit. And I think that if you went in knowing that it could be pulled, like, you kind of have to live as if you're ready to go back. And I'm sorry that is the case. I think that is a terrible and shitty way to run things. But at the same time, you have to kind of maintain your own sense of security and be ready, because you can't trust these people. You can't trust Activision. They don't have your best interests at heart if you're the employee. So I think some of the management might, maybe your closer management do, but Big Daddy Kotick, no. God, no. So that was the big brouhaha here a few weeks ago when that plan came out, and people had lots of comments about how just generally shitty it was and Blizzard shouldn't be doing this. And so that was kind of the first real disruption that we've seen, I think, since Dragonflight launched. And we've been in this honeymoon phase of, well, Dragonflight's good and everybody's digging it. It's a great vibe. And then we get this first kind of crack of like, oh, back to reality. Blizzard's gonna Blizzard. But then we had the all hands Q&A meeting a few days later. So this is now a couple weeks back. In this Q&A, Mike Ibarra, who is the he's the Blizzard Entertainment president, fielded some pre-selected questions. And one of the items that they addressed was something called stack ranking. So again, if you've been keeping up with things, there was a Blizzard employee by the name of Brian Birmingham. He was a lead on Classic Warcraft. And there seems to be a little bit of misunderstanding here, but from my reading of this, he pushed back on this stack ranking that they're supposed to do. I'll explain that in a second, but pushed back on it, and WoW had said that he left in protest, but it looked like he got terminated, like he got fired for the whole thing. So somewhere in there, either way, he doesn't work there anymore. I think it was Bloomberg got a hold of this because he seemed surprised that people knew about this, but he pushed back on it. And what it essentially is, I'm sure there's people that can articulate this better, but there is a stacked rank policy that ABK has in place where essentially you as a manager, I guess at certain times of the year, have to rank your employees. So if you have like a group, my understanding is like you have a group of 5, right? You have to rank them 1 through 5 under certain conditions. And in Brian Birmingham's, there's a pretty lengthy Twitter thread that he put out. I think it's a really good read if you haven't seen it. It does go back a month. You have to look for it a little bit. But you should be able to find it easy on Google. But he explains why, it's a shitty way of doing things, because you're essentially punishing good people potentially, where you have to have this sort of ranking. And, what if you have like on my team, if I had to rank like that, I would have a very hard time doing it because they're all great performers. They do good work, high level work, high volume. Like that would be shitty. Not to mention the fact that not only do you have to do that, but it affects potentially promotions and bonuses, and like there is a heavy impact within the company for having to operate that way. So Brian Birmingham pushed back on this, and that was again one of these things that came out, and people were asking at the Q&A, you know, what the story is, and is this something that they really need to do, and you know, is this all of this true? And in the Q&A, and this was confirmed by Game Developer, again going back to Game Developer as a website that has this news. Mike Ibarra confirmed, or it was confirmed, that Mike Ibarra defended the forced stacked ranking. I do wonder, you know, as Mike has put himself forward, this could have been a whole Rage segment, as Mike has put himself forward as, you know, one of us. He's a gamer. He, you know, puts stuff on Twitter all the time, and Jesus Christ, did he burn himself so fast through this whole situation where, as the president, you know, listen, I guess it's his role. He's got to back the company, or he'll get fired. I mean, you can go out on your sword, I suppose. But he defended it. He defended it. Along with that, spoke about the reduced profit sharing, where even though Blizzard had a banger of a fourth quarter, Blizzard employees are only receiving 58% of their profit sharing bonuses. So there are questions about that. And again, not reading the room, Mike Ibarra said something to the effect of, if you think that executives are making a lot of money and you aren't, you're living in a myth. Oh boy. Apparently the reason why this was stated is that, you know, the 58% applies to everybody. So we're all taking a hit. I mean, that's pretty tone deaf when you're making six figures and you've got test analysts living in Irvine or trying to and making about $45,000 a year. Now, depending on where you live around the country, around the world, 45,000 American US dollars, that might go a long way. You might be able to live comfortably on that. I'm telling you, in Irvine, California, you cannot. That is some would argue not a livable wage. It's not a lot of money. You're not doing much with that. You're subsisting on the basics. Sharing a apartment, maybe. But that is not. That is not doing anything. You know, you're not getting a house. You're not sending a kid to school, daycare. That's rough. So when you look at sort of the breadth of employees and salaries across the board, it was a pretty tone deaf response, and I think that comes off pretty defensive. In another just not great response, telework was brought up, and somebody specifically brought up about how this could bleed talent. Like, people are gonna be like, oh, fuck this place. Why am I going to work for Blizzard? They are taking away work from home, and there's plenty of other studios that are continuing on with work from home. Why would I leave? Or why would I stay? I got to get out of here. And his response to that was, quote, at the end of the day, we want people to be happy. And if decisions about being happy don't align with where we're going, and you won't be happy, then you'll have to do what will make you happy. Wow. So basically, if you don't like it, quit, which is just the oldest company line, I think, in history. Is, you know, well, if you don't like it here, go somewhere else. And further to that, I think all of this really that's happening at Blizzard, whether it's the pay, whether it's the telework, whether it's any of this stuff, it's what's playing out across, at least this country, across the country with businesses and employees and the labor movement that's happening, where when I mentioned the, test analyst job, getting paid $45,000 a year, Ibarra and Blizzard talk about how these are not meant to be long-term positions. These are short-term positions. Their view of things is that this is old school mentality, right? You come in at the entry level. I think back to Coming to America, right? When Louis Anderson's talking about, promoting within the McDowells, right? Talking about how one day he's, doing shakes and then he'll be on fries. The assistant manager, that's where the real money comes in, whatever he says. Like, that is the way that the mentality has always been, is that you should always be chasing that next promotion. When you come in at that entry level, then you work your way up, and then you make it to middle management, executive management, then you're a vice president of fuck all, right? Like, that is an old school mentality that everybody should see the world and their career in that way. Specifically, we're talking about, in this context, QA positions and customer service. You weren't supposed to be in those jobs for a long time. You come in and then you work your way up, right? I don't know what kind of vertical promotion ladder they have there, or what that looks like in terms of coming in at QA and customer service, and what room you have to move there. But you see this playing out everywhere, where that has traditionally been the view, and that if you don't chase those things, if you're not looking up the ladder, if you're not trying to move up and climb up and promote and do all these things, that there's something wrong with you, that you're bad, that you're a bad employee, or you're a bad person, or, depending on the lens, right? But I think that is changing. And you see that here, where people are trying to argue, what if this is the job that I want to do? What if I'm not interested in promoting, right? This is something that I want to do as a career because I like it. I feel good about this job. We're helping make a good product great. Like, this is my jam, and I should be able to live. I should be able to thrive in this position on the salary that I can make here. And so there's this real push and pull between, do you pay people at what have traditionally been considered entry or, lower level positions? Do you pay them more? Do you pay them a more livable wage, more prosperous wage, to make them happy, to help them grow, to see them as humans, right? Or do you continue on with, well, you start as the guy mopping the floor, and you work your way up to chopping the lettuce, and then you work your way up to working the, slicing the tomato. Like, what do you do there? It's definitely a rough patch for Blizzard right now. We're back in the thick of it again. The honeymoon period for Dragonflight is over. But you see this playing out, and it is disappointing, to say the least. Very disappointing. With, again, Mike Ibarra out there trying to put himself out as the gamer, I'm one of you. He's one of us. But at the end of the day, when you become the man, you become the man. I mean, now there's really no way around it. I mean, in a far lesser way, I've struggled with that in my own promotion. Right? I think a lot of people that go through that, right? We're at one rank, and then now you go up to another, and the perspective and the lens changes, and you either have to adopt certain things or you don't, and your success will depend on how much you either embrace or don't embrace certain things. And like, the higher up the ladder you go, the more the man you a corporate man you have to become, and become less one of the people because your concerns are different. And I think for any of us that have been speaking out for as long as we can, as loud as we can, for as long as we will be able to, about the situation over there, we have a unique insight, because there's a lot of businesses, a lot of private businesses. People don't talk about this publicly. There's not that much known. We have a really unique insight here, and a really unique opportunity as content creators or consumers of their products to stay vocal, to demand that they do better, to demand the change that needs to happen to make Blizzard a top employer, a top place to be, a top destination, a top production company. Like, we want all those things. We're all trying to push in the same direction, but it sounds like Activision Blizzard is making it really hard, right? Because they keep trying to push in other directions that are not popular with the people that actually have to do the work, right? And hopefully, with all of this that came out, which is why I assume that people, speak to the media under condition of anonymity or otherwise, right? Because perhaps then they might relax their stance a little bit. Maybe fewer people have to come into the office, or maybe they rethink that telework policy, because regardless of the conditions under which people were let out on work from home, it is demonstrably positive and successful from our vantage point. Again, there could be things they're looking at, metrics that they're looking at where it's something else. But by my count, it has worked very well. And the only reason they're doing it, again, is recalling people for old school bullshit. And that's not the way that a 21st century leading edge company should be behaving. And for Mike Ibarra, I'm sure that he is in a tough position, but my brother, you got to do better. You got to do better. And I hope that you are fighting for the people that are most impacted here and trying to get them better work conditions and trying to get them more supported. If people do have to move, y'all can afford to help these people move and get set up in a place. Like, you have the money. I seen it. So my hope is that by being vocal, remaining vigilant, that, again, change is slow, but I think positive change can still come. And as always, I'm going to keep an eye on this and make sure that, things that need to happen. And if they don't, then we're just going to keep yelling and screaming and raising a ruckus. And, who knows? Who knows? Be a BlizzCon and you can yell all kinds of shit. Like, get up there. Do you imagine that? Mikey Barra getting up there to start saying shit. People just start booing. Oh, they're going to cancel BlizzCon. They'd be like, nope. Need to bring an umbrella so I can protect myself from all the rotten eggs and tomatoes that come my way. Oh Lord. Well, good luck to everybody out there at Activision Blizzard, and I hope that sense prevails and the change that's coming will be positive and supportive for all the people there. We're going to switch gears. Talk about what's coming up in a patch that is somehow right around the corner again. Again, going back to work from home seems to be pretty fucking successful. We have patch 10.0.7 coming really fucking soon. They have not given us a date yet, but we have an official preview. And they don't do this unless we're a few weeks out. So definitely March in my mind. It's coming. And just signs that I'm seeing out there. VIP Club seems to be pretty active. We're going to a whole new place for non-Drakthir. Unless you started one up. You've never been to Forbidden Reach. Now, you're going to get to go back if you've been there before or for the first time. We're getting kind of like a quasi-new zone in a half patch. I don't even sub patch, whatever you call these. But I like what I see. I like what we're going to be doing. I love the sort of mix of activity here. So let's dive into it a little bit. We've got the Forbidden Reach, which did not know that is where the Drakthir were for all these tens of thousands of years while a bunch of other stuff was going on and they missed it all and woke up, broke out. Now they're with us. We're all going to go back. And the first place we're going to go is a place called, I'm going to butcher this, Morkut Village, Morqut. Morquet? I'm sure someone will say it. Morkut Islet. And this is where we're going to start. This is going to be, it sounds like kind of a central hub where there are going to be vendors and quest givers. And this is where we're going to start everything. This zone is going to have all kinds of treasures and bonus things for us to find, little rewards and events. which I love. But the first thing that I wanted to touch on that I'm really happy to see is they are going to be introducing faction envoys, where you will get to pick between the Dragonscale Expedition, the Tuskarr, the Centaur, and the Valdrakken Accord. And when you pick each one, each day, you'll get an opportunity to earn a 10% reputation increase for that faction. For those of us that are way behind, or even those that are trying to fill out those last few ranks, this is the kind of stuff that I really appreciate as we get later on into an expansion. I always go back, my favorite version of this years ago was when we had the tabards, and you could wear a tabard for a particular faction and go into a dungeon and you'd rep that faction while you were running around. And quite frankly, that was how I rounded out so many reputations back in the day, was because it was really easy to slap one of those suckers on and then go, I don't know, run your dungeon, do your dailies, whatever it was. It was such a good bump. And so now to see this form of it, I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of us. It's just a matter of checking in and doing it. It also says here that envoys will occasionally offer quests for extra reputation and elemental overflow to spend at the envoy traders for new rewards, such as 4 new dragon riding customizations, the Bucky battle pet, and the noble Bruffalon mount. There you go. 4 pets, more mounts. The other big feature that we've talked about is the Ziscara Vault. Right, we get keys out there in the world. We get keys. They said that Pathfinder Jeb and Pathfinder Tacha, if I'm saying that right, will help you start your foray into the vault and provide you your first 6 Ziscara Vault keys. But to gain access to more doors within the vault, you'll need to search more of the Forbidden Reach to find them. So you got to get out there and loot some treasures, kill some rares, do that kind of stuff. And then each door within the vault will require its own key to access. Keys are bind on account, so you can give them to your alts. But within that, right, we talked about the Onyx Amulet and the Primordial Stones, this sort of, I don't know, catch-up mechanic, whatever you want to call it. You'll get a quest for an unusual ring, and then you'll dive down in there and eventually find the amulet and get your primordial stones, mash them together, and get some fun stuff. And the 2 examples that they provided, one was something they call the Humming Arcane Stone, and the other is a Storm Infused Stone. So for the Humming Arcane Stone, it got an item level here, 405 to 425. It's bind when picked up, unique equipped. And you have a Humming Arcane Stone in it, and the equip says dealing magic damage has a chance to fire arcane missiles for each primordial stone family you have equipped, each dealing arcane damage. So, passive DPS. I love it. That's what I'm here for. Let's see, Storm Infused Stone, same sort of thing, except now when you have a Storm Infused Stone in your amulet, critically striking an enemy has a chance to shock them and 2 nearby enemies, dealing nature damage. More passive DPS. I love it. Anytime that I can get something that doesn't require me to push an extra button, especially as Fury. Right now, if you play Fury, you know this shit is spammy as fuck. And I'm too old. I'm getting too old. I don't know. I got to find a way to cheat. There's got to be a way. There's got to be a way you can cheat. But anyway, those are the kinds of things that we're going to be putting together with the Onyx Amulet. It's, a little mini game, shades of Shards of Domination and some other stuff. But this is all still within the first opening chapter of the game. So to me, again, this is not borrowed power. This is not some thing you got to chase after. This I think mostly is for people that are chasing either mythic keys or those of us trying to fill out our raids. We're pushing through heroics. I know for us, this will be a great lift for a bunch of us. So really looking forward to that. Also coming in 1007, new dragon riding races, because of course you have to. And battle pets. There's going to be some more storms. There's going to be a new event, a mega storm, where there's still going to be storms happening around Razagath's prison, and you can exchange some elemental overflow that you collect from killing baddies in these storms for upgraded gear. Then you'll get that gear on Morcat Islet or a vendor Mithressa in Valdrakken. So more catch-up gear. Love that. And then otherwise, I say, adventure, do your thing. And that is kind of the main thrust of what's coming as we return or go to, for the first time, the Forbidden Reach. So a lot of good activity there, daily activity. Sure that there's more to find out from this other than just this article that was posted. I do appreciate that being posted, by the way, because I haven't done a lot of PTR. And that is mostly because I'm trying to avoid anything about the Heritage Armor questing. So, Heritage Armor, we know it's coming. I've talked about it now several times. The human and orc, probably the two most important ones ever. This is the jam. This is the OGs. Finally getting the treatment. And for us humans, the Defias Brotherhood is up to their old ways, and they've stolen something dangerous and powerful artifact from Stormwind Keep. I have guesses. I'm sure people know. We'll find out. Matthias Shaw is going to send us on our quest, and we're going to uncover a mystery deeply rooted in Stormwind's shadowy past and stop the forces that march on Northshire. Northshire. When was the last time you've been there? And threaten Stormwind itself. And you got to be level 50 and up, and you have to be exalted with Stormwind or Orgrimmar if you're doing the Orc side to undertake this quest. But the picture here that they have, a couple variants. I think the red one's actually kind of nice. I have, blue and silver. That might just be the jam. I might swap out the pants. Not sure. I might swap out the pants. But overall, it's a great look, great color variations. The orc one also pretty intriguing. You're going to help Eitrig bring back the Kasharg festival from Old Draenor and prove yourself a true champion of your people. Oh, that's nice. Eitrig, for those of us that have been around a long time, Eitrig and Tyrion Fordring have a really unique and fascinating history. If you've never read through the story about those two, when Tyrion was cast out, or Eitrig was cast out. It's been a while since I've even read it, but a really unique and great history between those two. So I always love when they bring Eitrig back, an old orc, and he's seen some shit. That's always fun, but really excited about this one. I'm going to talk about it once I finally am able to do it and get to see it firsthand. And I'll be as honest as I can in my estimation of what happened. I'll see what I can do. I just realized the music cut out. I love doing this live. So fun. But I'll try to give you my honest opinion about what's going on. And we'll see. I gotta make sure that this goes on. This music just keeps going. Otherwise, I think it's pretty sweet that we're getting, one, a new zone for those of us that aren't Drakthir, and two, a great way to farm up rep, because that's going to be needed, and pretty excited about that. So, patch 10.07 should be coming, I'm going to say, here in the next few weeks. I am going to be on vacation the latter half of this month, so when it happens, I may not be able to get on it immediately, but I will definitely have my impressions up as soon as I can. There's still content coming. Don't worry. I'm gonna stick to this here, but we'll see when that actually comes. But pretty excited. Hope you are too. The pace, unbelievable. I cannot believe that they're keeping this pace up. They promised. There's a lot coming, so it is coming soon. Now, how about the trading post? What we got right now? I think the first month, had a couple little things here and there that went sideways, but overall, I think the Trading Post is a pretty solid addition. And I wanted to go through this month's offerings and give my grades. Give my grades. We're gonna do so many out of 10, I think. So first up, the Pandaren Monk. That's a 10 out of 10. That is one of the best pets of all time, and it's an old pet. You may have gotten this years ago when they were raising money, and this was one that you could buy. This is solid. This is pre-Pandaria, right? And this is when we first got a true look at. I think these pandas are. This isn't just a joke. This is real. That's a 10 out of 10. Dread Pirates Bicorn. It's not for me, but that is a solid ad. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I feel like it's missing a feather. I need a feather, like some big feather in it. 9 out of 10. Solid there. Next up is a shirt. It's a long sleeve button up shirt that's black on the sleeves with purple in the front. Fabulously flashy finery. On the model that they put up on the website, which I believe is a dwarf, female dwarf. You don't quite see what you see, I think, on the human male, which is that the two buttons in the middle, it actually kind of look like an exclamation point, like a quest giver. It's kind of cool. Overall, not exactly my jam, so I don't know. Points for creativity. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. Filigreed Lion's Maw, which is this very ornate shield with the sort of top half of a lion's head with the bottom jaw sort of missing. You can't see it, or it's obscured by fire. It's coming out of the mouth. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. And the only reason I'm docking a point is because back in Shadowlands, they had an updated fire model that they used for the little guys that were around there. It was so awesome. Like, if you'd have taken that kind of fire, made it red, and put it on the shield, that would have been an 11 out of 10. Badass. 9 out of 10. Filigreed Lion's Maw. Next up is a one-handed sword, the Frozen Shadow. And it looks like a Bizarro Charlemagne. You know how I feel about that Charlemagne. Just sucks that it's the one-handed version, because I would probably rock that as a two-hander, depending on the Mog. So I'm going to give that a solid 8 out of 10. Docking a couple points there because it's a one-hander. Next up is an offhand, a gnomish liquid transfer apparatus. It's a pail. It's a bucket. You've conquered lands. You have freed many peoples. You have defeated elemental gods. Pantheon gods. But you're going to hold a bucket. I'm not saying I'm judging you if you're holding this, but I'm judging you. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10. I can't believe they did this. I don't know what you're going to do with this. Maybe it's just because I'm not a gnome. I don't get it. But it doesn't look like it's going to hold water very well. I don't know. There's 2 big bolts on the side. Need some good welds. Come on, gnomes. 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. We'll go. Great Cloak. Next up, Great Cloak of the Virtuous Protector. Pretty nice. It's long. I like that it's longish. Goes down to about the calf. I like the ones that go down to the ankle. You need a long cloak. It's got kind of a gold and purple look to it with kind of a red fringe at the bottom. We're gonna give this a 7 out of 10. Docking a couple points for the length. But great look overall. Now we're getting into a couple that might surprise you. Shadowy Blade Master's Greatsword and Triumphant Blade Master's Greatsword. Now, I believe that these are more of an orcish thing. If I recall, we had a Blade Master guy that we dealt with back in like Warlords of Draenor era, and he had these long swords with the like the fabric at the end of them. You know, there's like the wrap around the handle, and then it kind of got like a little tail coming off the end of it. I am not the biggest fan of these kinds of swords, like the more blunt look. And I know it's two-handed, so it's got to be big, but there was like an era, a period of World of Warcraft where all of the weapons, all the big weapons had like this, they were just blunt. They weren't sharp. And it just, I don't know. Something about it that doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. I don't know. And they also look a little unfinished. I'm not exactly sure where these would have come from. Giving these a 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. Not my favorite. Not my favorite. I know. Surprising. Meanwhile, Trusty Treasure Trove, 10 out of 10. It is a backpack that is a treasure chest, and it has got heaps of jewels and a ring of pearls or a string of pearls coming out of it. That is solid work. That is solid work. It's a beautiful little piece there. Great little knot. I could see people actually wearing that around because what do? We loot stuff. Perfect. Next up, a plate set. The Fell Automation Exoplate. Again, not really hitting my jam. The things that I would wear probably sport this time around. I don't know. This feels a little too Legion-esque, which in that way was not all my favorite design. I'll give this a 7 out of 10. It's a solid plate set. It just doesn't quite fit it. It's got a lot of green around the face and the shoulders, more gold around for the other parts, and kind of like blue sort of draping around the legs, and a big green sort of gem in the belt buckle. Just not quite. I'm tired of the fell and the green, and I think I'm burned from that forever. Meanwhile, on the male side, the glorious Dragon Riders male, that's a 10 out of 10. That is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in Warcraft. The fact that I can't mog this is killing me. It's got this great horned helm and these dragon shoulders. Like, I don't know how this isn't a plate set. I guess because it's got the little male rings on the legs and the arms. But this is a solid set. Red and gold. Beautiful. I love it. Last few here. The Vagabond's Midnight Threads. It is a hood and a cloak kind of thing. Blue. It reminds me of one that Anduin wore. I really dig this. 9 out of 10. I just wish the cloak went a little bit longer. And then there's the Wanderer's Midnight Trappings, which is a sort of like a cloak with a shawl around the neck. Solid design, 8 out of 10. Just, could use a little extra something, little lining around the bottom of the cape, something like that. But last but not least is your monthly reward. I want to talk about this one. The Dark Moon Harlequin's Bells, which is basically like it's like a juggalo court jester went to the Dark Moon Fair and just like fell in. I don't know. Design wise, it's a good design. It is clever in the sense that it incorporates like the Dark Moon eyes, and it's very on theme and on brand and everything like that. But I'm never gonna wear this. There is no way I'm ever gonna wear it. It's terrifying. I don't like clowns. Clowns terrify me. But it is a well put together set. So I struggle with the ranking on this one. But it's gonna be a 1 out of 10 because clowns scare me to fucking death, and there's no way I'm ever gonna read or wear that thing. So you can forget about all that. I don't know. If it's your jam, it's got to be a 10 out of 10 because it is pretty creative. So that is your lineup for this month's trading post. Hope there's something in there that you like or something that is of interest to you. Of course, lots of activities to earn your tenders, not tendies, but tenders. You get your 500 automatically every month, and then you have a chance to earn another 500 from doing your activities, I believe. So hope you enjoy. Hope there's some good stuff in there. And we'll see what we've got next month. I don't think I will be buying anything for March. The last item that I wanted to mention real quick, just off the top of my head here, there was recently a fashion show, and you'll have to look this up, but there was a fashion show that featured Diablo-inspired pieces. Now, I don't even know if you know this about me, but I love competition fashion shows, like competition reality fashion shows, Project Runway, stuff like that. I fucking love those shows. And I'm pretty good, I would say, about picking out winners. And I think I have a pretty good eye for fashion, even though I dress the way I dress. Well, that has to do with some other factors. But if I could afford and then fit into anything, I think I could, I think I could do pretty well. But I love seeing this kind of stuff. And what a great sort of recognition for Diablo, where as a computer game, right? You got a fashion designer to take your brand and then create designs inspired by that. Like that to me is incredible. I would love to see the Warcraft or the Starcraft version of this. But Diablo, with its gothic fantasy aesthetic, it's right up the runway for fashion, unintended. And they had a few items. They're almost impossible for me to describe, so you're just gonna have to go out and look at them yourselves. But I don't know that you would know that they were inspired by Diablo unless somebody told you. But once somebody tells you and you look at it, you go, oh yeah, that makes sense. So go out there, take a look, and congratulations to Diablo. And last but not least, no holidays going on at the moment, but we do have Trial of Style coming up. And like I said, I do love fashion. So assuming I can participate in that and get on and do it, there's also some tenders to be earned for your trading post, because there are some specific Trial of Style items, I believe. So if you get in, enjoy that and have fun. All right. I think I've done enough damage for one episode. My thanks to all of you for listening. And remember, you can always follow me and this show on Twitter at Berserker Rage and Unshackled_Fury, as well as on Twitch at Unshackled Fury and Real Berserker. You can also join our Discord, links for which are in the profile of the show on Twitter and on our Bonus Roll Productions page. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise through any of those resources or unshackledfury.com. And you can find this show wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high, and we'll see you next time. Farewell.